This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be talking to one of my absolute favorite guitarists from the 80s hair metal era, and I am talking about Mick Sweda. Mick Sweda is here today. He was the guitarist for King Kobra and Bulletboys, and now he has a new band called The Hot Summers. And we're going to get into minutia on all of that stuff, and I can't wait. If you've never heard him play, go listen to the King Kobra and Bullet Boys songs. More so the Bullet Boys, because they were very bluesy based. And I love his guitar playing on Talk to Your Daughter, the old blues standard. His playing reminds me so much of ZZ Top, or even a little bit of George Thorogood, when George Thorogood was doing Move It On Over. It's such a great killer riff. You know, he's a talented guitarist. We've been trying to make this happen for months now, and we're finally going to make it happen today. And I cannot wait. Man, I'm still pretty bummed out about Mitzi McCall's death this morning. I have to mention it again because interviewing her and Charlie Brill was just one of the most amazing and profound moments of my life, because they were like one of the last of the great comedy teams. You know, I mean, the Smothers Brothers, both of them were still alive at that same time, and like Mark Maron had just interviewed them, and I was like, I want to get a comedy team from the old times. And when I found out that Charlie and Mitzi were still alive, I jumped the chance to get them, because they were on the Beatles, you know, with Ed Sullivan, you know, on that fateful day on, what was it, February 1st, 1964, or whatever it was. And it was just an impactful moment for all involved, you know. Not so much for Mitzi and Charlie's career, but they had fun, and they never complained about it. They were having fun all the way until Mitzi's end, and it's just so sad. Once again, my heart goes out to Jenny and Charlie for this type of sadness. So yeah, here is my interview with Mick Sweda. Hey Mick, welcome to the show, sir. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. I cannot tell you what an honor this is. We've been trying to make this happen for a while, but thank you so much for finally making it happen, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you for your persistence. Sometimes that's what it takes with me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, going back in time, I was reading that you began playing at 17 guitar, but did you grow up loving music?
Oh yeah, I remember studying music from when I was a kid. When I was very young, 8 years old or whatever, I used to go to my grandmother's. She had a bar called Sweda's Bar and Grill, and I would go with her during the day as she got the bar ready. And I would just spend time in this. She had a big old like dance hall room, and the jukebox was in there along with a stage and a piano. So I kind of grew up in that environment. But I would just I would find all the change that was on the floor behind the bar, and she would let me use that to play the tunes in the jukebox. And I mean, I'm not going to date myself by talking about the songs I used to play, but I remember just listening to these songs and hearing moments in each of them that would really, be profound for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I guess I could say I have been a student of music from my very beginnings.
Wow, the Sweda Bar and Grill. Does that building still exist?
Yeah, the building does, but the bar itself is long gone. It was a pretty popular hotspot back in the day. In fact, I think that's where my mom met my dad, so it's
Wow.
pretty wild.
Wow. So did you have anybody in your family that were musicians?
Nobody, no, and to this day, I'm the only one. My sister played a little bit of piano, but was never really into it. So yeah, it was just pretty much me. I was into hockey. I was like a hockey player when I was younger.
Nice.
And I remember, I've told the story a bunch of times, but I remember seeing a new kid in town, and he was sitting out on his front porch playing a thin line Telecaster, and I just, I wasn't really that much of an extrovert, but I just walked right up to him and started talking to him about it, and that was really the moment that inspired me to go out and buy a guitar. I think I had one within a week, and I was convincing, a couple of my friends to buy a bass and get some drums together, and not long after that, we had our first band, for what it was worth.
What guitarist influenced you?
Oh man, at that point, I remember my ninth grade English teacher had given me some cassettes of UFO. So Michael Schenker was really influential to me. At the time, I wasn't really a big fan of ZZ Top, but I loved listening to Billy's playing.
Yeah.
And I was a fan of this little-known band from Canada called Max Webster. They had a guitar player named Kim Mitchell, who I thought was really, for his time, a really outstanding guitarist.
Oh yeah.
And of course, Alex Lifeson and all the standard guys.
Yeah, Max Webster, they're a pretty good band. Years ago, I was looking up like Rush tours, and like this band Max Webster opened for them, and then there are these other Canadian bands. I pretty much discovered them all and went on YouTube and listened to their music because of it. There was also like Moxie and all these other Canadian rock bands. I already know who Triumph was, though.
Yeah, I had an affinity. Being from Buffalo, I had an affinity with pretty much anything Canadian. And it's funny because I still love that music and play it all the time. And my wife and my kids kind of laugh at me because I guess it doesn't really stand the test of time for them. But there's no getting that first love out of your heart.
Of course. Do you remember the first album you ever bought with your own money?
Boy, that's a great question. I think the first single I ever got was "I Think I Love You" by the Partridge Family. So that's how. But yeah, I don't know if I was even 10 years old at that point. Boy, my first record. That's a great question. I know for a fact that, and this was a little bit later on, but I went on a little road trip to Buffalo because we didn't really have that many. Where I grew up, it's just a small town, so buying anything like records was out of the question. And I remember going in and seeing Raw Power by Iggy and the Stooges.
Oh yeah.
And what I loved about it was it like I felt like I was doing something bad by buying that record. I felt like I was like breaking some taboo, but I did it anyway, and that was certainly one of the first records I got.
How about the first concert?
My first concert was at the 80,000 seat Rich Stadium with James Gang, Leonard Skinner, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, who were, at that point was really my favorite band. And it was, it was quite an experience. There was a lot of puking, a lot of pot, a lot of drugs, a lot of naked people, and it was quite an experience for a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah, it's a great lineup. I've seen Joe Walsh live. He's a great showman.
Yeah, I wish I'd paid more attention at the time. I mean, I'm a fan of his now, but back then I didn't. I was just like, geez, Leonard Skinner, who the hell is that? Let's get to Emerson, Lake and Palmer. But it was fun.
So you attended a community college in Jamestown on a drama scholarship. Did you want to be an actor at some point?
No, I didn't actually. But my English teacher in high school knew that I had an affinity for performing. She let us do, one of my first public performances in class. I think we did The Ballad of Dwight Fry by Alice Cooper. And at that point, I think she knew that I was, destined for performing in some capacity. So she actually got me the scholarship. I never even applied. I don't know how she pulled it off, but the next thing I knew, she was pulling me aside and saying, look, if you want to go to college for a couple of years, it's all on us,
Yeah, this is why fraud exists, and this is why people are always needing verification to see if this is the actual person, who signed up for this or applied for this and all that stuff. Because
Yeah.
you couldn't do it today, you know.
No, that's a good point. You would, yeah, you'd be lucky to get the person at this point, if something like that happened.
Yeah, but did you at least have fun when you were in college and doing all of that?
I did. I mean, I'll never forget my acting troupe. I developed a lot of close friendships with them, and uh, even though I wasn't really, I mean, I was in. We did Lysistrata, and I played the male chorus and it was kind of a lead part.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I'll never forget those times with them. I also played. I had played in the stage band in high school, and I joined the stage band in college as well. So I think I was the only guitar player in that band too, as far as I remember.
Hmm.
But yeah, the performance part of it was great. My bands got to play, in the college or in the student hall. So it was really just kind of a passageway to what I really wanted to do, which was to be in a rock band. And shortly after my stint in college ended, I was invited to go on the road with my first real band, Black Pearl.
Oh, you were in the Pedestrians before that, or?
I was, and that was I take that back. That wasn't a real band,
Hmm.
but um, the Black Pearl thing was my first band with guys that were much older and more experienced. With the Pedestrians, I was pretty much the leader of that band, and
Hmm.
I kind of everything sort of filtered through me. And while it was really rewarding, again, there wasn't anything for me to learn.
Yeah,
I was kind of I was kind of running point for that band all the time.
they were more of a punk band.
Well, we really mixed it up a lot. I mean, yeah, we took Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin and totally did, our own version of it, which ended up sounding more like Devo. And we played a lot of Ramones and a lot of Tony O'Kay and really obscure stuff that ended up coming off really well for the people that came to see us. But at the same time, we played Three-Way Jam by Jeff Beck, and I tried
Hmm.
to stay true to that. And we played um, stuff from Lou Reed's Rock and Roll Animal record, that intro, for example, that long introduction piece. But we
Hmm.
also wrote some original stuff. Well, I'll never forget. And I'm trying to think of the lyrics. We had this song called Men, and it was kind of a stomp, right? Like
Hmm.
you would just be like men, 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 and then we do like this little. I would portray the stereotypical uh, country redneck dude on one side of the stage, and then my other guitar player would play this sort of effeminate guy, and it was really fun. We had a lot of fun with that band. I'll never forget that.
It's hilarious. Did you guys play at like CBGB or any place like that?
No, I didn't play there until I was with Bullet Boys.
Oh yeah, I know about that story. But like, did you guys go there and hang out and see like television there or anything?
Oh no, I think I need to clarify something. Where I grew up was on
Hmm.
the western side of the state,
Okay.
so I had never even been to New York City until I'd lived in LA for probably a decade.
Hmm.
So as odd as that sounds, it's absolutely true.
So then Black Pearl happens, and like, how far did you get with that band? Is that the band that you came to LA with?
No, we did. We traveled up and down the eastern seaboard with that band and played a
Hmm.
lot of, a wide range of clubs. Some of them were pretty scary. I remember, a gunfight at one of them down in the south. But yeah, we went. We'd go from like the New York area, New Jersey, down to I think we got as far as Alabama. I think we played like in a like an underground club in Birmingham.
Hmm.
But that band was great. I mean, it was kind of a one tour thing. Like they had this old dilapidated school bus that kept breaking down,
Hmm.
and I remember catching. I think I had bronchitis. So at one point we had I mean, we were wearing kabuki makeup, and we had these white fright wigs, and some of the other guys are wearing platforms, as was typical for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a crazy outfit. And I remember one night I was so sick that my nose just started dripping blood everywhere, and and I guess tribute to Gene Simmons, I just kind of played it off as part of the show, but it was real.
Did you guys come close to getting signed with any of those bands?
No, that was never even a figment in my mind. Black Pearl was. I think I don't know if we ever even recorded anything. I think that was probably towards the end of that band when I was ready to get out and start the. Actually, I take that back. I think the Pedestrians was after that. Come to think of it.
Okay.
So, yeah, we I mean, I think I wrote my first song with them, but I don't know if it ever got recorded with them at all.
Mm-hmm. So you were working in a record store when Carmine Appice asked you to be in King Kobra?
Yeah, that was after I moved out to LA in '81, and I worked at that record store for maybe a couple of years, and I think it was 1984, late 1984 or something, when his manager came in and he saw me and asked me if I played bass because they were looking for a bass player at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, I'm a guitar player, so, sorry about that. And then I guess he remembered me and told Carmine, and Carmine came in and asked me if I was willing to dye my hair blonde, and I said, sure, why not?
Did he see you play somewhere and that's why he came in?
No, he just met me in person, and I went to his house to audition, and he was impressed with my time, and he liked my playing, so I think I reminded him a little bit of Jeff Beck.
That's interesting. Yeah. Were you a fan of Vanilla Fudge and Cactus, his other bands?
No, I wasn't a fan of Carmine at all, to be honest with you. I remember having, I had this compilation record when I was a kid, and that Vanilla Fudge single was on it. The cover they did that they were
You Keep
most
Me Hanging
known
On.
for. Yeah, You Keep Me Hanging On. And I always kind of skipped over that song. I didn't really care for it. It was a little snoozy for me. But, certainly he is, as we used to say, the penultimate drummer. And, he's got a lot of fans. And at the time, he, of course, played very well. So I didn't have a problem, locking in with him.
Yeah, he had just left Rod Stewart, and I think he was in Ozzy's band for a tour.
Yeah, I think the Ozzy thing came after Rod, and that's when he decided he was going to... I mean, he tells the story that Motley Crue was out with them, and I mean, it's kind of cringy to me, but he talks about, and I saw Motley Crue, and they had 4 brunettes and a blonde. I figured we'd do 1 brunette and 4 blondes. Like, oh my God, really, dude? That's how you're gonna make that known publicly? Oh, jeez.
That is kind of cringy, but then again, it helped you move along,
Well, Carmine, exactly, and Carmine never shied away from cringy stuff. I think he kind of liked it.
So when you joined King Kobra, was Capitol and Spencer Proffer already involved?
Yeah, everything was had been set in motion. Virtually all the songs had been written already, and I pretty much just came in and played my parts. Dave and I worked out what he was going to play and what I was going to play, and we did a week or two of pre-production with Spencer, and next thing I knew, we were in Pasha making a record, as Carmine would say.
Did you have any assurance that this could potentially be a huge hit because Proffer's track record with Quiet Riot?
No, there weren't any assurances. I'm pretty good at not getting too far ahead of myself. In fact, some might say that I'm too good at it because I never I've always waited until whatever I was doing actually happened before I put any faith or was devoted any happiness to it. So I was happy to just be in the studio playing. I mean, that was good enough for me. And certainly I was looking forward to, getting out and supporting the record. And again, it was all very new to me. So I just kind of waited for the next thing to come down the pike, and that's how I approached it, very much on a day-to-day basis.
Because that album, Mental Health, I mean, it completely changed the heavy metal landscape in the mainstream. There was not since probably Led Zeppelin had the heavy metal record been number one.
Yeah, I didn't frankly consider that record or that kind of music metal to me. I mean, basically when I heard Quiet Riot, I heard pop songs. Metal to me was Judas Priest and at that point, I don't even know how many other metal bands there were. I guess Tigers of Pantang or something, but for sure. It made metal kind of a household name, and they got a lot of mileage out of it, that's for sure. But it also kind of bummed me out because I didn't want to be in a metal band. I never considered King Kobra a metal band. Before I joined King Kobra, I was in a band called Stormtrooper that a lot of people still recall.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Oddly enough. And that even was, I guess it was closer to being metal, but I mean, it was by today's nomenclature, I think thrash. So
speed.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, there were, the tempos weren't really crazy in that band, but it was even by today's standards, like I said, I think they would have been more closely aligned with the thrash genre.
I watched the Hunger video again recently. It holds up. Where did you guys film that?
That was in a soundstage in Hollywood, as far as I remember. And they got Pete Angelus, who was working with David Lee Roth at the time and doing his videos and handling a lot of his media. I think he directed it. And of course, obviously the idea is that our faces are not to be shown until the end reveal, which oddly enough, I think it almost became like a de rigueur facet of my video making, because I never seemed to be able to get my face shown in any videos I was ever in after that, it felt like, anyway.
And that was a Kick-Axe song. They wrote it, and then they did it for the Transformers movie soundtrack. Did you guys ever get to do shows with Kick-Axe?
No, not at all. In fact, I knew it was a Kick-Axe song, but I didn't know anything about the band, and I had no idea that they, or until recently, I didn't know that they got that song in Transformers movie, which, that's great. Good for them.
Yeah.
We did 2 Kick-Axe songs on that first record. Excuse me.
Oh, what was the other one that was from them?
I'm trying to think. Oh man, I think I'm gonna get stumped on this one.
I'll look.
Yeah, something about rock. I think it's the last song on the second side, maybe.
Oh yeah, Piece of the Rock.
Piece of the Rock. That's it.
That was it. On the title track of Ready to Strike, you guys, the way you guys sing along, it reminded me of early Queen. Was that intentional?
Well, Mark Freed, to me is one of the better vocalists that have ever been in rock music. So it was easy for him to get in there and, make things sound that clean and that professional, for sure. I don't think Queen was like a target for us, but Mark, Mark could do any of that. I mean, he was kind of a chameleon with his voice too, so he could get there if that's what you wanted.
Yeah, I was like, this sounds like it belongs in a sci-fi movie. Just the way those vocals are, they sound great.
As you know, when I'm referring to Mark, I'm referring to Marcy.
Marcy Free, yes.
Yeah.
So my earliest memory of King Kobra was the Iron Eagles theme song. I used to watch that movie a lot when I was a kid. Was Louis Gossett Jr. really in the video with you guys, or was he added later?
No, he was there at the shoot the day I was there. I don't know how much. I think we only shot one day, that I remember anyway. But yeah, he was a sweet man. He was, he he was
Mm-hmm.
invested and working hard, and he did his thing. I think he came off really well, and it was an honor to be, performing with him.
Yeah, he was such a deep, insightful guy from what I've seen, and he was very passionate about what he did. How did you guys get your hair to be short for that video?
Well, that was a difficult and painful process because they basically just tucked it. Like, I think I had what you would call now a man bun that was, discreetly stuffed behind my head. So it really was a matter of just how they shot it and the angles.
Yeah, it looked pretty funny.
But then, somebody had the bright idea of actually saying we cut our hair. It might have been like a managerial decision or something. Somehow, I don't know if they leaked it out there or what, but there were lots of interesting decisions back then.
Yeah, you guys did some shows with Kiss. How was that experience?
Oh, it was fantastic. It was great. I mean, that was my first taste of being on a big stage, and we played at least some of the places that I had played or had gone to see concerts. So it was really fun for us, and they were, sweet guys to give us the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, do you guys remember where you played with them?
Well, I remember doing a lot of Midwest stuff. I know towards the end we played at least one high school gym, and I remember we played one place where they were picketing outside, because that was still at the time when I don't know if there was the PRMC or something where people had a problem with lyrics,
the censorship thing.
So there were protesters out there, and they were causing a problem. So I remember taking a Sharpie and writing on my arm 6'6", 5.5", just to sort of have some fun with it. And my tour manager came out and he goes, "Oh, Mick, you got to take that off. You can't go out there like that. They'll kill you."
Yeah. Did you guys have picketers when you were doing shows with Ted Nugent?
Oh, picketers? Yeah. I don't remember that, but we may have, because I think we did some dates with Wasp too, and I think they were another of that movement's targets.
Oh, big time.
So yeah, it wouldn't be surprised. Especially, I think we did those dates in Texas. So although I don't remember specifically, I would not be surprised if they were out there.
Yeah, that was a wild time. Yeah, Twisted Sister. They were one of the guys fighting for it. Dee Snider.
Yeah, and those guys were like the most benign group of guys. Like what what did they say?
Oh, that was
fight
Keel.
For your right. I don't know. Whatever they said.
Keel said the right to rock.
Yeah, but Dee also had some things like that were completely teenage in content, and I just don't understand where all that whole thing came about. But oh well.
Not to mention
every generation has their frightening things. In the 50s, people were worried that cars were going to turn everybody into juvenile delinquents, and and there's a time when in the 30s or whatever, when people thought TVs were going to turn everybody into brain dead zombies. So everybody has their thing that scares them to death. It's phones now, right?
Yeah. It also, not to mention the fact that they weren't even a party band. They didn't even get high or nothing. They were just straight laced. They just wanted to rock, is what they wanted to do.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like of all the targets, they should have been one of the last ones, I would think.
Absolutely. So you became disillusioned with King Kobra when the keyboards came?
I did not like the keyboards. I did not. Mm-hmm. We messed around with the Roland synthesizers, and we took those out on the road for a while to do some of the stuff from the second record. But yeah, I put together a song called, it ended up being called Feel the Heat, and it was like a rockin' guitar song, Well, the next thing I know, they've totally covered all the guitar parts with, these ridiculous keyboard parts. And, it's just goes to show you how intimidating a record company can be, when they say basically, if we don't get a hit on this record, you guys are fired. That's what ends up happening, and I'm sure we weren't the only ones to have ever experienced that, but I don't know. It's funny. My singer in the Hot Summers, Shane, he's like, you know what? I like that second record. That second record's way better than the first, I think. So, just goes to say it's, one man's pop sellout is another man's favorite record.
Yeah, it's like in the late 70s when Ronnie Montrose did the Gamma albums. That was more keyboard heavy, but he did some great guitar work on those albums as well.
Yeah, that's a good reference. I got those Gamma records.
Oh yeah, and also bands like Autograph and Quiet Riot, they started using the keyboards too. I never quite understood that. I mean, I'll give Van Halen a pass because Eddie was a genius, especially when he played keyboards. He was so classical the way he did it.
Yeah, and that's to your point. There is a way to do it. Like if they had taken those keyboards and used them as a support system on those songs, it might have been fine. And it might have just kind of leveled the guitars out and made the guitars less, I don't know, irritating or whatever they would have been. So there's a way to get it done. But when you just completely block the guitars and cover them and just saturate the record with keyboards, it's a keyboard record, in a guitar band. I mean, you can't do it that way.
Yeah. So when you start Bullet Boys, you probably knew from the beginning you wanted it to lean toward more the blues.
Yeah, certainly. I had done enough of kind of the speedy stuff in King Kobra, and I wanted the songs to resonate, and I didn't want to have to worry about. I remember somebody described a song one time. I can't remember who it was, but they said, yeah, that song just sounds like an excuse for a guitar solo. And I'll never forgot that. And I never wanted to be accused of something like that. So I just started playing around with heavier, riffs and making them, trying to make them groove, rather than impress with, whatever skills I had. So, yeah, I mean, that's a long way of saying you're right. It was, something that I intended to try to accomplish.
Yeah, because bands like Great White and Cinderella, they were kind of bringing the blues back in the 80s metal scene at that time.
Yeah, I remember hearing that Cinderella record and thinking, okay, I'm on the right track here.
How did you guys find Mark Torian?
Well, King Kobra actually absorbed Mark and Lonnie for the last, like the death spiral of it. I guess Carmine had booked he had somehow got a couple of dates in Spain, and evidently they were paying pretty well because that's a long way to go for a couple of shows. But at that point, Johnny and Mark had split, so we ended up finding Lonnie somehow. I'm not sure. I didn't know him at the time, and he ended up bringing Mark aboard. So that is how those guys ended up in that band. We did those dates in Spain. I know we played the Roxy, and beyond that, I don't think we did much else. We tried to get some demos together with Gene Simmons, and it was at that point that I knew Carmine had lost his way, because we did two songs that Gene and Paul had written, or at least it came from them. And, I was trying to present songs and it wasn't really going over that well. So I think at that point I did become disillusioned, because I knew that Carmine was going to do whatever he could to try to keep the thing afloat. And I wanted it to be on our own merits.
How long was it before you guys got signed to Warner Brothers?
Well, I'm not sure what month I split the band. I think it was in the summer of 87, maybe. And then we started writing in my place and then rehearsing at Lonnie's. And I saw one of our merchandising guys from King Kobra on the Strip one night. And I said, hey, man, how you doing? And we exchanged pleasantries. And I said, I've got a new thing. And he goes, well, yeah, man, I'm in management now, so if you guys ever want to send me something, let's hear it. So he ended up liking what we did and ended up working with us and getting us, a better rehearsal spot, and we ended up doing a demo for Columbia. I think they gave us $5,000 to do a demo with Garth Richardson, and they passed on it, but we had to wait a month after they passed in order to shop it. So as soon as that month elapsed, or maybe before, who knows, we played it. We did showcases for Geffen. A number of labels came down to see us, and when Ted came down, he had been directed towards us by his sister, who was also in A&R at the time, and he said, "Okay, you guys just run through your tunes, and I'll put my hand up when I want you to stop." And he sat through the whole set, never put his hand up, and he said, "Hey, man, that sounds great. You guys want to make a record?"
Yeah. Ted Templeman, I mean, he's the holy trinity of hard rock producers, I mean, that must have been just thrilling working with him twice.
Oddly enough, when we put our list together of guys that we wanted to work with, he wasn't on mine, because the last record that I heard that he had done was done with Mirrors.
Yeah.
And I thought that record sounded flat, stale. I mean, it sounded like Aerosmith probably was at the time, just like living on fumes.
Yeah.
So I wasn't impressed with that. And we took a meeting with Bob Ezrin, which was really funny. We're sitting in the room, right?
Yeah.
And the conversation has barely started. And he's one of my favorite producers. Like, Bob Ezrin, to me,
Alice Cooper
has made more classic records. Yeah, Pink Floyd. He's made more classic records than I have in my collection, I think.
Yeah.
So at one point in the conversation, he starts going, he holds his fingers up like this Italian chef, and he's like, "Bullet Boys, bullet." Say, that's not going to work. We're going to have to change the name. And at that point, I think we were out of that room in the next 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, that's hilarious. The smooth up in ya video is great. Do you know who did the animation graphics for it?
I don't remember who did that, but it was at my. I was inspired by that. I did a lot of research on art and artists, and I found a guy that I really liked, but he wasn't interested in working with a rock band, I guess. So we found someone else to kind of bring my vision to life, and that's what most of that animation is.
Yeah, I think one of those illustrations was used for the cover of the single too.
Yeah, we kind of honed in on Hatchet Head and kept him as kind of a mascot. We actually had a backdrop with him on it, and we kind of took him along for the ride.
Whose idea was it to cover "Hang On, St. Christopher"?
That was Ted's. We were in the studio one day, and I guess he'd just heard that song, and he can be kind of compulsive or impulsive, I should say, maybe compulsive too. But he played the song for us, and I don't know if you've ever heard the original Tom Waits version of it.
I've heard
it, but it's almost kind of got this beautiful cacophony about it, right? Like, and it's kind of whimsical and quirky. And he's playing it for me. He's going, "Man, I think we could do this. I think it'd be really cool." And I'm sitting there going, like, "What the fuck? What the hell am I gonna do with this?" So I did my best to come up with a track that would at least sort of give the impression of that sort of dissonance and that cacophonous sort of feel. And he then, once we got that done, he said, "Okay, now we need a chorus. So Mick, come on, give me a chorus." And all I could think, I always loved the idea of those harmonies where the first note is sort of static and holds that tone while the other notes play around it. So when we were standing in the control room one time, and I said, "Well, here's my thing, man, check it out." And he loved it, so that's what we went with.
Yeah, Mark, he gets compared to David Lee Roth a lot, and it's certainly in this song, you can hear it because the way Dave wails the blues when he's doing like Edgar Winter's Easy Street or Ice Cream Man, it's very comparable to this version of Hang On St. Christopher.
Oh, that's interesting. As with all the other stuff that Mark did on our records, I would, I would imagine that would be more comparable to David Lee Roth. But you make a good point. Like Dave could do that sort of swooning, almost 40s kind of
Yeah.
thing, and Mark, yeah, Mark did a good job on this tune. I mean, he kind of relaxed and pulled it back, and it's kind of nice. It's kind of a nice break from all the howling and screaming he does.
Yeah, you mentioned before about how you got into ZZ Top later. I love my favorite Bullet Boy song is the cover of "Talk to Your Daughter," and the way you play on it reminds me of like ZZ Top's early records with a little bit of George Thorogood's "Moving On Over."
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a trippy tune. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't that excited about doing that tune, and really, if Ted hadn't pressed the issue, I probably would have wanted to veto it. But it was funny. I was during those times making that record. I was taking my weekends up to the mountains and here in California, where some friends of mine were playing in a club, and I would sit in with them. And there was one night when this guy he focused and honed in on my long hair and was being really insulting, and he must have been kind of drunk because he kind of was trying to face me off a little bit. So I got into a tussle with him. I took him to the ground and started, just held him there, like I didn't hit him or anything, and let him know that he wasn't gonna mess with me. Well, by the end of the night, I guess he figured he'd take another chance. So he's standing in front of the stage, just staring at me. I said, "All right, fuck it, come on, buddy, we're going outside." And as soon as he came out of the door, I just grabbed him and took him down and delivered about 13 shots to his head. And like the bass player said, he goes, "Oh my God, I've never seen somebody throw so many punches so quickly." Anyway, I ended up breaking my finger on the guy's head, and
Oh.
that was a Saturday, and we had to record "Talk to Your Daughter" that Monday, and
Ooh.
that's the only song on the record where I'm actually using my fingers to pick the groove.
Yeah.
So yeah, an unfortunate turn of events for me, but I ended up getting through it.
I'm sure you can feel arthritis in it now.
No, I don't have any arthritis, but it's been bent ever since then.
Oh, that's sad. I know Jerry Garcia, he had like half of a finger missing and he would like put a slide over it.
Oh, is that what he did? That's funny. I never
Yeah.
saw that.
Mine is a great song. It sounds remarkably like the Beatles' "Oh Darling." Was that an inspiration?
Not really. I don't know where that song came from. I knew that I mean, I was writing a lot of stuff on my own that never went to Bullet Boys,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that was one of them. That was just something that I was toying with, just to be different. And when the guys heard it, they got excited about it. And again, we were in the same position that King Kobra was in. We had to have a hit.
Mm-hmm.
We had to have something, that improved upon our second album's performance. And I never intended to play it for the band, but by the time Ted heard it, it was definitely going to be recorded. And actually, Warner Brothers really fought hard for us to release that first. And knowing that would have been kind of a what the hell's going on moment for our fans, we went with something else. But yeah, we were hoping that would kick some life into that record. Unfortunately, by that time, we were very fractured, and I think Mark made a call to one of his buddies at our label and let them know that there was some weird stuff going on, and they pushed the button on the record and just killed it right then and there.
It seems like both bands you were in didn't seem all that interested in having a hit power ballad like a lot of your contemporaries did then.
Yeah, we purposely avoided it. I mean, I wrote a couple, and I was just listening to some old stats that I had from back then, and there are at least 3 ballads that were written for the second album, but we never concentrated on those. We wanted to have a rock, and we wanted to make a point with the second record too, because we could see the shift in the landscape, at that time, and we knew that, bands, a lot of bands who I'd rather not be compared to, were, making great efforts to come up with ballads to sustain their careers. And so we didn't want to be cast in that light, and decided to go in the opposite direction, and much to our detriment.
And you probably didn't have female fans as big as like Poison and Motley Crue did.
No, maybe not to that extent. I mean, we didn't have fans, period, to the extent that those guys did. But, the fans we did have were stalwart and very fond of us, and were very true to us, and we'll always appreciate that.
Yeah. So how did the Hot Summers come to be?
Well, years and years after Jimmy and I left Bulletboys, we got in touch and thought we'd start working on some stuff. And by the time we had a few songs together, I thought, well, it's hard to write when you don't have a voice you're writing for. You want to, I mean, that's a big part of it. Just like when we did For the Love of Money, I pulled that song out and did a demo of it, knowing that Mark could kill that song, and he never did sing on my demo. The only reason we did that song is because Ted heard it, and he's like, whoa, what is that? We're going to do that. So again, you have to have a voice and some kind of focus for the songs you're writing. And so we put an ad in the paper, and Shane showed up, and we hit it off famously, and went through a lot of ups and downs after that. There was quite a bit of tumult, in getting this Hot Summers record together. But after all that time, it finally did, and here we are.
Yeah, I've listened to some songs on YouTube, like A Touch of Hate, and I saw the video for the last one. That video could have easily been done in the '80s with the black and white backdrop there. It's awesome. I like it a lot.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, my wife is responsible for a lot of that, so I'll let her know you liked it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Do you have any new music coming?
Yeah, I'm working on kind of an ambient post-rock sort of cinematic record, and we're also rehearsing the Hot Summers. We haven't played out in quite a while, so we're getting together rehearsals for some shows with Hot Summers, and just staying busy. I mean, honestly, I took some time for myself and my family over the last year or so, and just try to recalibrate. And I think that worked out well for me, so I'm ready to get back at it.
When you say ambient, you're talking like Brian Eno type of stuff?
Maybe. It's more, if you listen to bands like if these trees could talk, and a band called Pillars, and there's a band called April Rain. They're what you would call post-rock bands, where they basically were probably rock bands much like us back in the day, and they just do everything instrumentally now. And
nice.
They go for sort of a lot of it is pretty laid back, some of it's very repetitive, but I really enjoy it, and I'm gonna try to put my own stamp on music of that genre.
That's so awesome. Do you still get a kick out of playing live?
I do. It's been a long time, and I'm really itching to get back out there and do it. But that, even when we were going through this last Bulletboys iteration, and everything was kind of miserable, 23 hours of the day, that 1 hour on stage was the best. I just loved it. So I miss that pretty terribly.
Yeah, the pandemic, I mean, it screwed up a lot of people's schedules, but all the bands from the 80s, they're back on the road now, and they're doing those cruise tours and stuff.
Yeah, those are fun to do for sure, but at the same time, I want to, try to push beyond those boundaries, and I never really wanted Hot Summers to be, cast in with, with nostalgia acts,
right.
With respectfully.
Do you
I mean,
think
Bullet Boys was a nostalgia act as far as I was concerned, so I'm not denigrating anybody.
so? You won't reunite with King Kobra or Bullet Boys now?
No, Carmine calls me once every couple of years and asks me if I want to do something, but um, yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't think even he could do it.
Yeah. Well, Mick, I thank you so much for finally coming on, man. This was great. I hope you play some great shows out there. Maybe I'll get to see one of the shows someday, and look forward to you playing ambient. And you have yourself a great night, and be safe out there.
Thanks, Tommy. You do the same, and I sure appreciate you being patient with me and hanging in there. So it was really fun to talk with you, and I enjoyed it very much. Thanks a bunch.
Absolutely, man. Have a good night.
You too, Tommy. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. Mick Sweda. Ain't he a cool dude? Ah, what a nice guy. Very humble. Good stories there. Funny stories. It was a great conversation. I'm so glad we got to finally talk. Go see the Hot Summers. Go listen to his old stuff with the Bullet Boys and King Kobra. They rock. Those bands rock. He's one of my favorite guitarists from that era, and I get the whole nostalgic thing, that he doesn't want to be a part of. That's fine. He's a continuing artist, and he's a brilliant artist, so it was such a pleasure to talk to him today. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.